Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. I'm 27, female. I've been best friends with this girl, 27, female, ever since kindergarten. Our parents knew each other, and because of that, they always got us together for play dates. I guess you can say that our relationship was arranged, but we got along nicely and enjoyed playing together. We are what you can consider being polar opposites of one another, but in spite of that, we still cared greatly about the other. The problem is, I've always had to cover for her all of our lives because she's always doing sneaky things, and I always have to lie for her. Back in high school, it was pretending she was sleeping over at my house while she was meeting boys. In college, it was pretending she was sick in our dorm while she was out, cheating on her boyfriend. I guess it's kind of my fault for enabling her all of this time because I've gone along with absolutely everything she's done and covered everything up with lies. Call it an obligation for being her best friend, but I felt as if it were my job to do. As long as she wasn't doing anything too crazy that could be considered as harmful, I would always let her use me as an alibi or lie for her by saying that she was one place when she was actually somewhere else. It carried over into our adult years where I would always have to phone her job about her being too sick to call in herself, just so she could have a paid off day to shop at her favorite stores. The guy she dated in college was someone she eventually had kids by, but they didn't work out, and they eventually ended things for good about a year ago. About a month after the breakup, my best friend meets this guy on some online dating app, and she becomes so smitten with him. He's some guitarist for a local band, and in my opinion, I feel that they rushed into things way too fast. After 4 months of dating, she was spending almost every other night at his place while pushing her kids onto the kid's dad or onto me, since my nights are mostly free. I respected the decision of keeping her kids from meeting the boyfriend too soon because she was herself still getting to know him. 8 months into the relationship, they suddenly became engaged, and she's talking about how they're about to start house hunting. I had noticed that she had been spending less time with her kids over the months and more time with the boyfriend, but I kept my thoughts to myself. The kid's dad started becoming suspicious about the kids spending more time at his house, and when he found out that she had just gotten engaged, he confronted her about it. She claimed he was just jealous that she had moved on, but he said he didn't care. He was happy with his relationship and would never neglect his kids for someone else. She took his words as jealousy and just left it at that. I remember that I kept asking her when the wedding was, and she would always become uncomfortable and change the subject. I thought that maybe they hadn't decided on a date and stopped asking. Until one day, which was 2 weekends ago, she had suddenly shown up at my house at 5 in the morning with her face full of makeup as she begged me to watch the kids for the day. When I asked her what was going on, she claimed she had an emergency with needing to go to the hospital, and assuming something happened to her fiancé, I agreed to keep the kids with no problem. It wasn't until I was browsing my Instagram feed that afternoon that I found out that my best friend had actually gotten married that day when I saw her posts full of the wedding day. I felt used and hurt that she didn't have the decency to tell me that she was getting married today, especially since she had been acting as if I was going to be the maid of honor. Not only that, her kids were missing out on her big day due to whatever selfish reasons she had for it. I tried to call her, but she wouldn't pick up and just decided to confront her whenever she came to pick up the kids. The kids' father found out from a mutual friend about the wedding, and when he found out the kids were at my house, he came to pick them up and went to the wedding reception once he found out where it was. Hours later, the kid's dad is on Instagram Live and he is exposing my best friend for not only having a secret child-free wedding, but for not telling the fiancé that she had kids. I didn't understand why she'd hide having kids from the guy she's with, but according to her, this is all my fault for allowing the kid's dad to take his kids from my house to bring to the reception. I don't understand how anything is my fault, especially the part where the kid's dad came to pick up his own kids as if they don't co-parent them. I could understand if the dad was someone who wasn't allowed to be around the kids, but that's not the case at all. I think she's more embarrassed that he brought the kids and the fiancé, along with his family, all found out that she has 2 kids after she had lied about having none. She refuses to speak to me after texting me scathing messages about how I'm such a bad friend, I don't deserve to be the kid's godmother anymore, and how she would have never betrayed me as I had betrayed her. I still don't understand what I've ever done wrong in this entire situation. AITA for not stopping the kid's dad from taking his own kids? It's been a week since all of the wedding mess went down, and sadly, my best friend won't even speak to me. There is a part of me that's pretty mad at her for excluding me from her wedding and also her own kids. But since she's my best friend, I was willing to talk things out with her at least. I've heard from mutual friends who were at the wedding that after the kid's dad had come in with the reception and introduced himself to the fiancé had been so shocked that he just left the reception without a word. He has since spoken to my best friend and suggested that they take a break to cool things off. According to our friends, my best friend thinks he may be planning on ending the marriage, and she's blaming everyone for it except for herself. She's been posting those sad quotes online as a pity party for herself, trying to get people to feel sorry for her, but so far it's not working. All she's doing is making people even madder at her since she won't acknowledge her wrongs in the situation. For some reason, she still doesn't understand how any of this is her fault and says that she kept the kids from the wedding as a way to have no problems. The fact that she thinks her kids not being invited to their mother's wedding is solving a problem and keeping the peace is a diluted way of thinking. Not only that, but she also accused me of being the one to tell the kid's dad about the wedding when it hadn't even been me. I didn't even mention it to him when he picked the kids up and had kept it to myself. I'm just going to keep some distance between us and hope for the best because I refuse to apologize for things that I haven't even done. It's officially 2 weeks after my last update, and at least my best friend and I are somewhat on speaking terms now. I think after she played the blame game long enough, some of our friends started telling her off about how she's the only one to blame in this situation and that it isn't my fault. She's had to hear from our friends, even her own family, about how she should have never went into that relationship with the big lie of not having kids, that it was wrong and it was misleading to her husband, who now isn't sure if they should stay together. I think some of the things she was told was the breakthrough for her to finally call me and apologize. She told me that she hadn't initially set out to pretend she didn't have kids until a month into their relationship, when he had told her that he never wanted to have kids. She was so in love with him by that point that she wanted to hold on to him by any means necessary, even if it meant hiding that she had kids. I had asked her how did she expect to keep this up if the kid's dad had never shown up at the reception and if she had moved in with the husband. She said that she would have asked the kid's dad to have full custody of the kids and asked me to step in to help out in case there were times she couldn't be around as much. I wanted too badly to tell her how crazy that sounded, But I think once she said it out loud, she realized it herself. She says that she plans to have a big sit down talk with her husband in hopes of salvaging their marriage and hoping he'll be open to trying to get to know her kids. She realizes that she can't just cut her kids out of her life in order to please someone else, and that moving forward, her kids have to come first. I think she's scared that he won't want to get to know the kids and may just go through with leaving her and ending the marriage. All I can do is hope for the best, and also hope that she's learned her lesson throughout all of this. I also learned my lesson as well, and that was to stop enabling her behavior. So going forward, I will no longer be a part of any of her messy plans so that I can start avoiding drama. All of this has been exhausting, and never again do I want to go through this again. NTA, but your best friend is. It's disgusting to give life to two children just to pretend to not have them. Not only that, she neglected them in order to chase around some guy she just met. You did nothing wrong here. You did nothing wrong, and I don't understand how you were being blamed as if you had done something. She got caught up in her own lie, and not only that, wasn't her family at the wedding? Did they not know she was hiding her kids, or were they in on it too? I'm 27, male. My husband, 34, male, is a higher up in his company. He has to travel a lot for work, and because of this, we usually end up spending at least half the year outside of our home state. As this will likely be the case for a considerable portion of our future, and after falling in love with our home away from home, we decided to purchase an additional house there. The transition from living out of a hotel to having an actual home brought a lot of joy into our lives, but it also was a cause for complications. Obviously, our parents miss us when we're away, but we don't see them much more when we're at home. We live about an hour away from both his and mine, so it can make just dropping by visits difficult. When we return from our time out of state, we typically devote a weekend to each of them where we go and stay with them from Friday to Sunday in order to catch up. Other than that, we mostly see them on holidays and birthdays when we can make it. That's enough for my husband and I. The issue arose when my in-laws started talking about coming to spend a week with us in our new house. They said it's the perfect excuse to take a vacation and to put in some extra quality time with us. Now, I like his parents. We've always gotten along. But the thought of hosting them for a week is not my idea of a good time. After living in a hotel for a while, it has made me appreciate solitude so much more. Being alone with my husband without having to hear noises from other people or worry we're making too much noise has been so nice. I don't really crave going back there with extra hosting duties on top of it. The onus of entertaining them will also fall onto me while he's at work. Still, I agreed to let them come under the caveat that we wouldn't be completely changing our routine or habits to appease them. My husband told me he would handle it if it really did start to bother me. They got here on Friday afternoon, so thankfully my husband has been with me for the majority of the time. This morning, however, he ran out to get us all breakfast, and my mother-in-law pulled me aside and let me know she could hear mine and my husband's intimate moments the night before and requested we keep it down. I told her that if she would like, there's a lovely hotel just 15 minutes away that my husband and I would be more than happy to pay for. She was affronted, and things have been tense ever since. At some point, she pulled my husband aside and demanded he talk to me and gets me to apologize. AITA? YTA? Dude, it's a week. Just keep it down a little until they leave. I swear these NTA replies are just cruel and bizarrely petty, and frankly sound like things that sound good on paper, but just aren't how people in the real world interact. And it sounds like you have a good relationship. There's no reason to gleefully stick it to them over something like this. And while technically they did invite themselves, that is really not that unusual or rude to want to stay at someone's new home. I'm scratching my head at some of these replies, making this seem like it's out of the ordinary. At least in the US, it really isn't uncommon to host family. You could have just said no or that a hotel would be better, but you agreed and now they are guests. Technically, it's your home and you can do what you want. But you're being unfathomably rude to people who, it seems, don't deserve it. ESH. But you're the host, so you suck more than you did the night before. No guest wants to hear those noises, and especially not from relatives. Your mother-in-law didn't talk to your son initially because who wants to talk to their adult kids about that? Ugh. But she still sucks for not sucking it up. I mean, ignoring it, not sucking it up. That sounds wrong. Oh dear. Anyway, just stop being a screamer and screw the bed frame tighter before screwing your husband. It's not that hard. Or maybe it is. Ha ha. I cannot stand the man mother-in-law married. He has been nothing but rude to my husband and I. He thinks he's too good to talk to us most of the time and then throws in the occasional dig. He also hates kids. I don't care about people not wanting kids, but he full on hates them. Recently, mother-in-law offered to babysit for us. I was hesitant, but she claimed she really wanted to and knew how badly we needed a night out. Mother-in-law's husband was not happy. He flat out said he doesn't feel she's capable, no health or age-related issues, and that he wanted nothing to do with it. I felt it wasn't his business and told him he was being weirdly controlling of his wife. Well, the night she babysat, I got a furious call from her husband. He told me I needed to get to their house ASAP as he did not agree to watch any kids. And mother-in-law had tried to escape to their neighbor's house and then had locked herself in a room, and he was taking care of my kids. I said I would get there immediately, but that wasn't good enough. He still called me ignorant. When we got there, he opened the door and gave me a death stare. I said I would be taking the kids, but he began shouting at me that he had been taking care of them for almost an hour, poor babies, and that he can't take it. I was like, okay, just let us go then. He told me no and that I owe it to him to listen to him. He said I'm stupid and should have listened to him as he knew mother-in-law years ago when her kids were young and said she was never without the nanny. And that I should know how bad her attention span, impulse, control is. He then said my kids are hyperactive and I owe him an apology for what I did to him. I laughed in his face and said he couldn't seriously expect me to apologize after how he just spoke to me. I said I wasn't sorry, and I really don't care if my kids messed up his night. His wife messed up mine. The next day, mother-in-law messaged me and apologized for her role in it, but said I owe him an apology as he was the only one who stepped up and it clearly took a lot out of him. I still refused and said I won't apologize to someone that unpleasant. YTA, your first responsibility is to the health and safety of your children. You allowed yourself to put mother-in-law's desire to babysit over your children's well-being. You didn't like father-in-law. He has been rude. He openly stated he hates kids. He was not happy about the babysitting. How many more red flags did you need to say no? You put your own desire for a night out above your kids' well-being. No, you shouldn't apologize to father-in-law. You should apologize to your children for putting them into a traumatic situation. You and your children should go no contact with mother-in-law and father-in-law. She is married to an abuser. She allowed your children to be traumatized. Every time you put your children in the same room with mother-in-law and father-in-law, the kids think this is normal behavior because mom and dad would never put me in danger. What your husband does is up to him, but he is TA too for agreeing to this. ESH. Obviously them for their actions, but also you and hubby. It seems pretty obvious by your mother-in-law's actions that she has issues. So how you, and especially your husband, thought this was a good idea is beyond me. She didn't just get that way overnight. And if you can't even stand the guy, why would you think it's a good idea for your kids to be in their home? And also, where was your husband while this confrontation was going on? Why didn't he go into his mother's home to pick up the kids and deal with his stepdad? If anything, talks to mother-in-law and explains that you would have apologized to him for having to take over if he hadn't been such an insulting jerk when you picked up. At best, you'll call it even. ESH. You're not wrong for not listening to your father-in-law, but you need to ban your mother-in-law from babysitting your kids. Because either she is in an abusive situation or she is unreliable and is willing to leave your kids with this man when he's a terrible influence to have around. Why are you even in contact with your mother-in-law if she makes promises and doesn't keep them and wants everyone to cow to her husband's bad behavior and also wants everyone to just move on when she behaves badly?